that's my work. I created that. Like, stop. You know, create your own stuff.
Their stance on it was that it wasn't that big a deal.
Customs, third-party product, are they good for the toy industry? We'll be talking about customs and third-party product. One, not as polarizing, the other very polarizing. But stuff that I have some strong opinions about it. Obviously, you guys, know I tend to, wear my opinion on my sleeve here. But it's kind of something I wanted to talk about because, we make toys, or, myself, other toy companies, we make toys, and could it be protected as far as like when it comes to third-party stuff? And then are you okay with somebody customizing your stuff, like AKA customs? I think there's a lot to digest in both of them, and I wanted to take two subjects like customs and third-party stuff and kind of mash them together and see like, all right, well, what are people's thoughts on it? Are they good? Are they bad? What are my thoughts on it? Are they good? Are they bad? I think there's good points and bad points for both. I kind of want to dive into it. As usual, I want to hear what you guys think because, I'm sure you guys watching this stuff, there's a lot of you buying third-party stuff. There's a lot of you customizers out there. I have sort of different takes on each, and I think my thoughts on them have started to change as I've grown as a toy company and a collector. Also, my experience at Legion's Con this past go around has really changed my thoughts on customs. So I kind of want to dive into that first. Now, when I was there, for those of you that I got to meet at the show, it was a great show. I did not expect what that show was. I'd never been there before. I'd never attended. I just didn't know. I thought it was a regular toy show with toy vendors, but it was a celebration of fans doing amazing work for a specific toy line. So I kind of felt like an outsider there. However, we did really well at the show. Turns out the Mythic fans love Action Force, so thank you guys for loving Action Force. But it really blew me away. I was walking around the show, and it was just like fans doing custom work and stuff that worked with Mythic Legions. And I couldn't believe it. I was like blown away by how much was out there and how everyone was extremely talented. Now, I ended up buying a few customs, this crab guy, this axolotl, bought, some other ones, because I thought, I love artwork, and I love whether it's, physical stuff or paintings or comics. I just appreciate artwork. And when I see someone doing something very talented, I kind of gravitate to it. So I was loving seeing what people were doing. There was a vendor there that took Legion's parts and made battle beasts. I was like, this is so cool. There was another guy, he did Spider-Man villains. He did the Kraven he did was really cool. But he also had like a Gizmo Duck from DuckTales. And I was like, the thought process behind that and to be able to make something that cool, so awesome. But, I was never really a customizer. I mean, I was like a kid, I painted figures, but I was never like in depth to what these, individuals do. And then when I started the line, I always looked at it like the product should be how I designed it. It should come out and should be left alone. Because it's like someone basically, if you buy a comic and then I start like drawing over it, like, no, this doesn't look right, I'm gonna fix this. It's like, well, no, that artist meant for that to be that way. So for me, I see it like, well, no, these are my figures that I designed. I meant that for them to be a certain way. And now someone's taking them and making their own thing out of it. So there's that kind of thinking of it. And I'm just like, But then I see what people create and I'm like, that's really cool. This is a custom Dreadnoks trigger. And the individual who made this listens to our 3POA show. And he sent this to me because I said how cool it was. It came with a bike. Like, this is really cool. Someone made this desert scarab, and it's like, this is cool. This is really cool stuff. So I see it, this crab, like, that's amazing. And I'm like, all right, but I want them to leave it alone. But then I see this stuff and I'm like, okay, but that's really cool. So I'm so conflicted when it comes to customs. And, I've seen people customize the Vanguard. And I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool. So, there's, I guess what I'm saying is there's, like, for me, there's no clear side that I take. I think I'm more, it's probably like a 70% okay with customs, 30% like, no, you should leave it the way it is kind of thing. I like a figure for what it is. I kind of take it out of the package and I display it. That's what it was meant for. I tend to celebrate that. I think if I had more free time, maybe I'd do some more custom stuff. You know, because again, I like being creative, but I like the idea of kind of creating something from scratch. But then, you know, I see this stuff and I'm like, man, I want to get into the mythic stuff and I want to start doing my own like mythic customs. I will never be as good as what these guys do. Stuff is amazing. But I'm really looking forward to doing Legions again because I want to see the new stuff people are doing and like really get to know these guys and what they do, and you know, that whole like community. It's like to be a part of that is really cool. So yeah, customs, they're okay in my book. Now, the next polarizing one is third-party stuff. Third-party stuff really became kind of prevalent. I'm not a Transformers guy. Third-party Transformers was always like a big thing. And people were like, how can they do this? How could you do, you know, stuff that is kind of like branded Transformers or a blatant kind of Galvatron or Optimus? And how can you do that? How is Hasbro not stopping that? And now today, fast forward 10 years, 15 years, and everyone's doing third-party stuff. I have 4 examples right here of stuff in my collection. So Mark, we were just talking about some polarizing things. We're talking about customs. The other thing we're talking about, third-party stuff.
Okay.
Now, third-party stuff is pretty polarizing because, you know as well as I do, it's illegal.
Yeah.
But it's like there's some really great stuff being done. It's third-party stuff. Now, I thought, you know what? Your time on Transformers, you probably have some good insights as to what was being done and how they felt about third party on Transformers.
Yeah, I was surprised when I first joined Hasbro in 2012. I was on Transformers, was there for about 2.5 years, and I was really surprised at that there wasn't more vitriol from the team, from Hasbro itself. Like, it is theft, right? Yeah. However nice it is, however much you wish that toy was being made, if it's taking an IP, it's IP theft. It's no different than going into the bulk foods and taking out some chocolate covered raisins, right? Like, it's no different. It's no different than Napster.
Yep.
You know, no different than downloading that movie you want but don't want to pay for. Mm-hmm. But their stance on it was that it wasn't that big a deal. And I remember talking to Aaron Archer, who was one of my very favorite guys there when I first started. We only overlapped for about a year. And his stance was, look, if it's replacement stickers, like I think Toy Hacks does and some other guys do, or if it's like a lot of guys, they do better hands or feet to put on the combiner.
Sure.
If it's something that augments the original toy, they had no problem with that. Archer actually endorsed it.
Okay.
Because you have to buy the Transformer, or maybe it brings like
promoting a sale in a way,
or there's a beater on eBay.
I am an incredibly big advocate of IP protection. I think when an IP is yours, no one has the right to do your IP. If someone's out there thinking, well, they're not doing this and the fans would want this, so I'm just going to do it. You don't have the right to do that. You don't have the right to take somebody's IP and say, oh, well, nobody's doing anything with it. I should be able to do it. That's wrong, and it's also illegal. So if someone came after my IP and started, you know, producing Action Force stuff, ripping off my IP, I would 100% fight that and go to the ends of the earth to fight that. So, you know, it's like, you know, you have attorneys on retainer for a reason. It's to protect what you've created. You know, so I feel very strongly about that, especially when I was at Hasbro. You know, I didn't think it was right that people were producing G.I. Joe stuff. I just think like that's Hasbro's IP. If they're not doing it, well, okay, well, that's unfortunate, but that doesn't give you the right to do it. But then there's a flip side to that coin.
I worked for Jerry Javoyne, who I liked a lot during my time at Hasbro. And his point was, I was really frustrated by it. Like, I was running Generations. That was the collector-focused segment of Transformers at the time. And I'm like, this is really kind of killing me, all the stuff that's out there, because it always was good looking. Quality can vary company to company,
Yeah.
but it always looked good. And it was a frustration for me. And Jerry's stance on it was pretty passive. He said, you know what? If we're making the right toys, then they don't have a market. And I'm like, okay. And Transformers was
Interesting point.
Yeah, and Transformers was a brand that had an item count of like 200 at the time. So it wasn't like they were getting squeezed for creativity or tooling dollars. So I kind of took that as you know, kind of 007, right? Like license to kill here. Cool. Then I'll make the right stuff. And I remember one of the big wins we had was we were working on a Cyclonus figure to put in the Combiner Wars line. And a third-party company put their Cyclonus out like 2 weeks before we announced ours.
Okay.
And, you know, who's the better mousetrap? Hard to say, but ours was definitely the cheaper mousetrap.
Yeah.
More affordable, easier to get. And so the idea that we may have caused a whole bunch of item cancellations somewhere else was something we were pretty excited about. But that was just kind of blind luck, or that we recognized what the other company did as well. Hasn't been a Cyclonus figure in a while. He's always been a cool guy. So kind of hitting on those...
I don't know who that is.
Right. Kind of hitting on those underserved... I mean, the A+ guys always get made.
Yeah.
But that A-, B+ guy, or the guy who's more popular than he should be, like Mercer in G.I. Joe's a good example. He wasn't supposed to be a big star, but man, the fans liked him.
Sure.
So those kind of guys, if we're making those guys, then the third-party guys at least don't have as easy a sled to push.
Yeah.
That was always their perspective. And I always thought the underlying bit was it's so hard to fight that legally overseas.
Yeah.
That Hasbro's legal department wanted no part of that fight. But I never saw a brand that got hit as often and as deep as Transformers did, right? You don't see Marvel or DC stuff
You don't.
that bad.
Don't.
But Transformers was just willing to take it for a variety of reasons.
This is only 4 of a few, of many that I have. Here I have a Bane, a Joker, you know, a Watchmen character. I'm just blanking on his name. Rorschach, thank you. And I have Bill the Butcher from Gangs of New York. Now, I've gotten really into these import third-party 6-inch figures. I think the stuff they're doing is pretty amazing. And now I just started to dabble into 1/6 scale, and this is a figure that I got that I was blown away at. But like this Joker here, I said this Joker was like my figure of the year, the last year, the year before. It's a flawless figure. It's amazing. And he's got his grenades, he's got his soft goods. The sculpt is amazing. But he was called like Clown Prince or something. And he's done by some knockoff company in Asia. Same thing with Bane. This figure was called the Destroyer. And, you know, another knockoff company. He was called something else. None of these were licensed. These companies did not have permission to do these. However, they're amazing figures. Now, while they're part of, you know, the times we live in now, and they're available, I bought them. Some people will say, well, that's very hypocritical of you to buy these. I could see that. I could very much see that. However, if tomorrow there was a crackdown and the toy industry said, nope, no one could do third-party stuff anymore, and it was a stop. All retailers said no more third-party stuff. It was a new thing that they were cracking down on hardcore, and everyone stopped doing third-party stuff. I would not complain. I wouldn't say, no, man, it sucks we can't get those figures. I would say, no, okay. And it's kind of like saying, well, if you could loot stores and then, you know, once they were cracking down on it, you stopped. Yeah, again, I'm not saying it's not hypocritical of me to say this. It very much is. I bought this stuff. I love it. I think it's great. However, it's not yours. It's not yours. It's kind of the same thing. People are like, well, you know, how could you do that? It's kind of like, well, you guys know my feelings on Hasbro. I still buy Hasbro stuff. So I'm still going to buy the stuff I want, but I could still have views on it. Like, again, if someone were to try to create Action Force stuff, I would fight that to the end of the earth and threw a lot of money to make sure that was stopped. Because it's wrong. Someone does it to you, it's wrong. Maybe Warner Brothers looks at it as like, this is small potatoes. You know, it's not a big deal for them. You know? Whatever studio put out Gangs of New York, maybe they're like, oh, someone did a 12-inch figure of Bill the Butcher. Oh, that's pretty cool. Are they really going to stop this? Also, the laws. It's like, yes, you can litigate and stop this stuff if you're in the US and they're in another country. It's harder, but is the juice worth the squeeze is the question. You know, this Bill the Butcher it's amazing. It looks just like him. It's such a cool figure. I have both versions. And I've started, now that I'm into 1/6 stuff, I've started to find out that third-party stuff is huge in 1/6. Huge. Like crazy amount of third-party stuff. Some is okay, some's not that great, some is amazing, like this. I have a couple figures in my collection that are not licensed stuff. Now, I hope that a lot of you feel the way I do. It's like, yeah, if it's available, okay, I'm gonna buy it. But it is wrong. It's definitely wrong. I know the companies doing this stuff that do third-party stuff, they don't look at it as wrong. Look at it as like, well, I'm gonna do it. You know, come stop me kind of thing. You know, it's unfortunate, you know. I mean, you know, I reached out to a vendor of mine, you know, because I saw what one of these companies was doing, and I said, well, hey, can you get me in touch with that company? Because maybe I could talk to them about doing licensed, like high-end soft goods, like Action Force figures. And their response was kind of funny. It was like, yeah, no one has their contact information, and their company changes names all the time. So it's like, it's like the Wild West over there. That's what they do. You know, so they kind of get around it. You know, there are some companies that choose to do third-party stuff very openly about it, and I'm not okay with it. I've been very vocal about it. Because you're stealing somebody's IP. Like, create your own thing. Create your own thing, do your own thing, stop stealing other people's stuff. Like, is that thing that great that you needed to take it? Maybe, maybe not. But again, it's wrong. Like, it's wrong. And if you come out and you say, no, there's nothing wrong with it, or some sort of excuse, there's no excuse you're going to make that's going to make it okay. Like, at the end of the day, you're taking something somebody else did, and you're saying they're not doing it. You know, there's a lot of brands like that, like, you know, obscure stuff. What's that Galoob brand? Oh, Unifighters that I've talked about before. You know what? Nobody's doing Unifighters. I'm just going to copy that. I would never. I know some people say, well, you got Action Force and Steel Brigade. Yes, I did that legally. I did that through trademark acquisition. I applied for the trademarks. I got them. Hasbro did not fight me on the trademarks that I obtained legally. And I created new stuff. Created a new Steel Brigade. I created new Action Force characters. I didn't go after the old stuff because, one, I wanted to create something new. I didn't want to just do the low-hanging fruit of rehashing something someone else did. I wanted to make my own stuff. A new story, new characters. You know, get more creative. Create your own thing. Yes, I saw value in the name, but I also looked at it as like the names were dead. And the Action Force name was abandoned. Hasbro abandoned it officially. Go on the United States trademark site. It's like it was abandoned. They had no desire to do anything with it. So rather than see that name die, I said I'm gonna revive that name, and I'm gonna make it something and reboot it and give it another life. Some people could look at that as wrong. Okay, well, if I didn't do it, and 5-10 years go by and there's no Action Force stuff ever again, then your brand dies. Like it's dead. It doesn't come back anymore. So I was trying to do something good with it. And Bob Reekin, who created Action Force, he applauded what I did. He said it was an extension of what he was doing with Action Force. It's another iteration and continued the line. So that meant a lot for me to hear that. You know, some fans are they look at the Action Force brand, it's very beloved to them, so they don't like what I do. That's okay. But Action Force is here. It's not going anywhere, and it's done legally. You know, these 4 guys, not done legally. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm sure a lot of you think like, because you're not vested in something as like a company, but if you know, maybe some of you have created something, you're like, yeah, I would never want someone to copy what I've done or copy my work. You know, there's comic book artists out there that like when people swipe their work, it's like, hey man, that's my work. I created that. Like, stop. You know, create your own stuff. You mentioned Jerry. I remember when I first started, I was on the exclusives team. I was working on the masterpiece stuff, and I learned about how it's like, okay, yeah, you know, Takara or a third party is going to get to this one masterpiece, and then we're usually late to the game. I remember thinking like, we should tool our own. So I pitched an idea to Jerry about tooling an all-new Galvatron. So
Okay.
Galvatron had not been done in masterpiece yet. And I said, let's beat the third party or Takara to the punch, and let's be the first out of the gate instead of the last out of the gate. And he applauded the you know, my you know, desire to want to do it. But he was just like, yeah, we're not gonna spend those tooling dollars on a all new tooling Galvatron.
And probably didn't want to potentially offend Takara either.
And that's
right?
the other
sure
thing,
that was
because of
part
that
of it.
Takara relationship. It's like, ooh, do we have to, you know, we kind of have to run it by, like, hey, we're thinking about doing this kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I just thought like with your Transformers knowledge, because I know nothing about Transformers, it's like, yeah, nothing. And I had mentioned it earlier in the video about how no one gets hit harder than Transformers.
Yeah.
You know, it's like now, you know, some of the DC stuff I was showing, it's becoming a little bigger, but it's never going to reach those Transformers third-party levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I guess because most third-party companies are from Asia,
Mm-hmm.
and Transformers are really big in the Asian market. So I'm
Yeah.
guessing that's why they dig so deep.
Yeah,
Is it stuff that really resonates in what is their home market?
I agree.
I remember a bit with Takara when they were kind of putting out feelers for a next masterpiece figure. And I always thought the old G1 guys always, because they weren't great. Usually they had a great vehicle mode, but the bot mode was a little janky. And so I pitched, you know, a couple of the G1 guys who'd never been done. I thought Mirage would have been awesome. And it got shot down right away. It didn't even get to Takara because got to remember, they sell in Japan. F1 racing means nothing in Japan, right?
Yeah.
And to this day, they haven't made a G1 Mirage because it just isn't going to resonate in that market.
Interesting. Transformers Insight from Mark Weber.
I'm the guy.
All right, guys, there you have it. That was my opinion on customs and third-party stuff. You got to hear Mark's opinion on third-party stuff, give you a little background insight from his time on Transformers and what they thought about third-party stuff. But as usual, I love hearing what you guys have to say about this stuff. I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on it. Is it okay? Is it wrong? Is there a gray area? But yeah, comment below. I'm going to take a look at it and see what you guys think. And, you know, make sure you guys are liking and subscribing and turning on your notifications because we have new content coming out every Saturday at 9 a.m. Seems like you guys are digging it. We've got some good stuff coming. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for stopping by. See you on the next one.